So you're a rich, clueless executive who wants to create a cinematic universe because you've seen Marvel's box office numbers and you're desperate for a bit of that pie. And who can blame you? The MCU has been around for 10 years, and in that time there have been 18 movies, most of which have done incredibly well at the box office, 10 TV shows which have mostly not been cancelled, and enough merchandise to finally buy that sweet, sweet summer home in the Bahamas you've had around for keeping all your child sex slaves in. But next to those big pieces of paper with Marvel's box office numbers on, you have a far smaller, far less impressive piece of paper with the numbers of films like The Mummy 2017, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, and The Dark Tower, which I honestly forgot about until just now. So you're wondering how you can avoid creating the next horrible flop of a cinematic universe and having to face the constant shame of Greg from down the hall rubbing a successful Saved by the Bell cinematic universe in your face? Who knew a Screech prequel would win 27 Oscars? But don't worry your balding little head, because I, an internet nerd, am going to tell you 5 things you should never, ever, under any circumstances, do when creating your cinematic universe. And all I want in return is $1 million, an option on my screenplay, and your firstborn child. Number 1. Don't create a cinematic universe from any old property you can dig up. I see you flipping desperately through your trademarks, trying to find a movie from the 70s you can create a reboot, 5 spin-offs, and another reboot for. Don't do that. We have seen many cinematic universes crash and burn before they can even really take off because they were based on a franchise that no one cared about. Look no further than Universal's Dark Universe. Taking the classic Universal monster movies and tying them all together with crossovers and versus movies is not a bad idea. Hell, it's so not a bad idea that they already did it. That's right, my friend, Marvel ripped off an idea from Universal 70 years ago and made bank. But as much as people nowadays know the name Dracula or Mr. Hyde or Vincent Wolfman, they don't really want to see these properties turned into sexy Hollywood blockbusters. The average Joe who knows nothing about the property beyond vague name recognition will go, huh, they're making that into a movie? And the actual fans of the property will hate to see the things that they loved changed basically wholesale, only keeping the surface elements. In fact, fans of that property can be so mad about the changes they raise a huge stink, don't go to see your movie, and then you have to call them all man babies when your bad movie flops. Sorry, how did this picture of Paul Feig get here? I know there's this idea that recognition equals cash, but in the 21st century where the old things I like are just a click away and there are 10,000 Netflix shows I want to watch, you're going to need more than me recognizing Dracula to get me to leave my house, go to the cinema and pay actual human money to watch your movie where sexy Dracula played by The Rock is a tortured anti-hero and fights zombies. Speaking of casting big name actors. Number 2. Don't cast a name actor just because they are a name actor. Look at Chris Pratt. Look at his muscular chest, handsome face and undeniable charm. He would be perfect as Norman Bates in the Psycho cinematic universe you're thinking of starting. Except, no. No, he wouldn't be. In fact, Chris Pratt is so far removed from what the character Norman Bates needs in an actor, casting him would be ludicrous. But that sounds so over the top. I mean, no one would make casting choices that absurdly bad. Would they? Jared Leto, Jesse Eisenberg and Cara Delevingne called. They want you to know DC have been making casting choices this bad for the past 3 years. Or, hey, going off my example, let's look at the last Psycho remake where they cast Mr. Funny Pants Vince Vaughn as the Psycho killer himself. Just a disclaimer, I've never found Vince Vaughn funny. Even Marvel are guilty of this one, casting the constantly miscast Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, a role for which he was, shockingly, unsuited. And all because he has high cheekbones and fluffy hair. Beautiful, beautiful fluffy hair. That is not to say the actors listed above aren't good in the right roles. I loved Cara Delevingne in Anna Karenina? Really? What the fuck? My point still stands. Actors are not interchangeable. They are, much like writers, directors, DOPs and anyone else in the film and television industry, best suited to certain roles, certain genres and certain types of production. Casting the hot new thing just because they're the hot new thing can hurt your burgeoning franchise in 2 ways. First is, once again, turning fans against the product. Nerds on the internet, myself included, spend hours fan casting the X-Men, so casting a character properly matters to us, and casting an actor who doesn't fit the role can turn people on the project, except in the miraculous circumstance where the casting turns out to be perfect. Second is that one day, maybe soon, maybe not so soon, the actor you've cast to helm your franchise who was, at the time, the it guy or gal, they will eventually stop being the biggest thing since sliced bread. Very few actors manage to maintain popularity for a long time, and improperly casting them in movies that don't best show off their skills can only hurt their long-term drawing power. So put Chris Pratt's number down and cast the up-and-coming indie actor as Norman Bates, and save Chris Pratt for your Fifth Element remake. I mean, Chris Pratt in a bandaged bodysuit? Damn. Number 3. Don't lay out your next 10 films before the first one has come out. Alright, so a bit of clarification here. Don't lay them out publicly. Of course you should plan ahead when building your cinematic universe. That's what makes people enjoy them, when they lead somewhere. But don't lay your plans out to the public before your first film has even come out. Let's look at the Marvel and DC cinematic universes. Marvel kicked theirs off in 2008 with Iron Man. At the time, no one had any idea how far in advance they had planned. In fact, the first hint we got that an Avengers movie was coming was in the after credits scene. Which, by the way, not every film needs movie studios. Where Nick Fury showed up and said,
"I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative."
Marvel took the time to build their universe out film by film, TV show by TV show. When they finally did lay out their plans for the next 50 billion years, they had established enough trust and hype around their brand that people were excited by this news. Excited that for the rest of their lives they won't be able to move without seeing an Avengers movie. I can't leave my house without having Thor Ragnarok projected into my eyeballs, and yet here we are, breaking box office records every Tuesday. Now, let's look at DC. Hey, don't play that sound effect. Wonder Woman was alright. Putting aside the actual quality of the films, DC's overall cinematic universe has been a mess. They announced a slate of 10 films after Man of Steel, a film which people were less than positive about. To go on from this, let's not use the word failure, this cinematic kerfuffle, and announce 10 more films is frankly ludicrous. People had no faith in the DC cinematic universe because it was built on an unstable foundation. Not only was the foundation unstable, they were trying to build a 10-story building on it. Movies have been pushed forward, backwards, cancelled and uncancelled, and we, the fans, have been privy to all of this because they had already been announced. To us it creates the impression that the DC cinematic universe is a mess. And, let's be fair, I imagine Marvel's movies were just as much a mess in the early days. But they didn't say, "Look at all the movies we're doing, aren't we so great?" and then cancel half their movies and just shrug about the rest. In fact, when they did make changes, it was to add Spider-Man in and cancel the Inhumans movie because, let's face it, no one wanted to see that. This aura of confusion and chaos infects public opinion of your product, even if the films were of the highest quality, which I'm sorry DC fans, but they are not. It becomes hard to trust the creators because they don't seem to have a plan. Let's look at Kevin Feige. People love this guy because he appears to have everything planned out. Does he? Hell if I know! It doesn't matter if he actually does have all the stuff planned out years in advance or if he's winging it like the rest of us, because Marvel has carefully curated the image of him and Marvel Studios as a whole as the J. Michael Straczynskis of films. And JMS when he was like crazily planning out every detail of Babylon 5, not Sense8 10-minute psychic orgies JMS. And this image makes people more excited for future films. Even the Ant-Man and the Wasp has people excited because people like to figure out how this stupid movie with an ant playing the drums is going to fit within the larger mythology of the MCU. Because they've got the image of it all being meticulously planned. Because they didn't announce 20 movies at once, then cancel them or move them back or do whatever the fuck they did to Suicide Squad. So yeah, you don't have to plan it all out, just make it look like you did. Fake it until you make it, boys and girls. Fake it until you make it. Number 4. Don't try to establish everything with one film. Look, I get it. You're desperate. You've only got one film to establish this universe and you want to cram everything in. The Scrappy-Doo origin, the Velma and Doobie-Doo rivalry, the fact that in this universe Daphne is dating Shaggy for some reason. And you want to hint at all the future films, so you've thrown in all the costumes and made the villains an evil league of theme park owners, oil barons and castle porters. But you shouldn't do that. Mostly because a Scooby-Doo cinematic universe is a terrible idea that no one wants to see, but also because setting up everything straight away is a bad idea. But Ryan, your last point was that we need to appear to have laid stuff out. Aren't those two things kinda contradictory? No. It's more like we've got to temper one with the other. Yes, you do need to create a sense you've planned in advance and know what you're doing with your life, something I've learned to do extremely well as a recent university student, but you can't do that at the expense of the actual film you're watching right now. Let's look at The Mummy. The Mummy contains several heavy-handed scenes meant purely to tease the future Dark Universe movies that probably aren't happening anymore. Along with dropping copious amounts of Easter eggs, which would actually be an acceptable form of setup, it also took valuable time out of the film's plot to set up the Dark Universe's shield analog, the Prodigium, which I am told by Google means pretentious bullshit name we made up to sound cool. We took precious time out of this 1 hour and 51-minute film set up Dr. Jekyll and his super cool secret mystery hunting organization, and the fact that he turns into an evil creature sometimes. And then Tom Cruise as the Mummy and Mr. Hyde have a fight, because that's awesome, right? Except, no. No, it's not. Forcing all this crap into your first film really lowers the quality of it. Remember what I said earlier? You have to create quality films to create trust in your brand before you can really start pumping money out of those big old titties they call the cinema-going public. That means making films that are good. And good films generally don't have long protracted side plots and ultimately lead nowhere in the current film and only serve to set up future films. Unless I missed the part in Citizen Kane where he spent 20 minutes hanging out with George Bailey in Bedford Falls, heavy-handedly setting up the fact that Bailey's totally going to throw himself off a bridge at some point in the future. Or hey, what about The Amazing Spider-Man 2? Everything you love is garbage now. That's the official subtitle, by the way. They put that on the DVD cover. I know it was the second film in the franchise, but this was when they were really trying to set stuff up for the future. Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin, a room full of suits for Spider-Man's rogues, Black Cat and Alistair Smythe all appeared in this turd. The worst offender was definitely Harry Osborn, whose entire subplot in the film is to set up him for a future appearance leading the Sinister Six, and takes up an inordinate amount of screen time, really contributing to the film's already wonky pacing and jumbled feel. By trying to use one film to establish an entire universe, they overstuffed the movie and ultimately caused it to fail both critically and commercially, thus bringing an early end to the Sony Spider-Man cinematic universe. Except they're still doing a Venom movie. Kevin Smith once said in Hollywood you just kind of fail upwards, and by golly, Sony has been doing that for the past 5 years. Number 5. Don't do it, please? Alright, I know this seems like a cheap 5th item on the list, but really, please, just don't. We don't need any more cinematic universes, they're already dropping like flies. I know it's the in thing and all your movie studio friends are doing it, but it's not worth it. Even if you follow all my ironclad advice, you're still doing something that, more than likely, won't work. Marvel won. They beat you all before you even knew you were playing a game.
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
And became the cinematic universe. People care about these characters in these films on an emotional level, and that's something you can't just conjure up. People don't want to see cheap attempts at ripping off the thing they already like because, shocker, they already like that thing. Be new, be original, create new properties that highlight things the Marvel movies don't have. Because at least then you're betting on the underdog who can win big, and not the prize stallion you'll only make a few quid off. So don't try to make a cinematic universe, don't try to jump on the superhero bandwagon, and for God's sake, stop rebooting all this crap no one cares about. Find a screenwriter or a director or a producer with a crazy new idea and give that person money. Even if you fail, you'll fail nobly. Oh, and if you do create a risky, big-budget sci-fi film, maybe put it in cinemas worldwide and not just on Netflix, Paramount, you fucks! I wanted to see Annihilation on the big screen! If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. What dead franchise would you like to see soullessly exploited by Hollywood in a desperate attempt to create a new cinematic universe? Me, I'm hoping for an Eternal Sunshine on the Spotless Mind cinematic universe where Elijah Wood gets his own trilogy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.